Unlike previous top quarterbacks, where you don't want to focus solely on the championship, the NFL's ultimate team goal is to win the Super Bowl. The ranking of the best NFL teams ever was more of a controversial conversation among PFN staff than I had imagined. The greatest team in NFL history had to do it on both sides of the ball. All teams on the list are from the Super Bowl era. The Oakland Raiders in 1976 were 161, but their records of domination are not in conflict. 4th in the ranking and 12th in the allowable points. However, they turned the ball over more than their opponents. In addition, the Raiders had 60 players in the one-score game. They had a great pass attack, but despite the record, they lacked the oomph that the other teams had on the list. Welcome to the Sports Source. This channel has all the information you're ever going to need about the NBA and the NFL, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the top 5 greatest NFL teams of all time. But before starting the video, hit that like button and subscribe, and without further ado, let's get right into it. In the number 5 spot, we have Washington. I'm gonna say that part again. In the number 5 spot, we have 1991 Washington. Speaking of absolute reckoning, the 1991 Washington team might deserve a higher ranking on the list. Sadly, they have an extra tick in the loss column than the 84 49ers and the 85 Bears. Their offense was similarly impressive to the 2007 Patriots. This is one of the greatest NFL teams of all time for that reason alone. But also their defensive dominance. Washington's offense scored a staggering 59.6 above the league average. Their defense, conversely, ranked 2nd in the league. The team allowed 26.3% fewer points than the league average for 1991. The 1991 team had 2 All-Pros in offensive tackle Jim Lachey and cornerback Darryl Green. Moreover, Washington boasted 6 Pro Bowlers, including their QB, RB, and leading wide receiver. Art Monk also registered over 1,000 yards receiving but did not make the Pro Bowl. In the number 4 spot, we have the 2007 New England Patriots. I'd argue this is the best of the greatest NFL teams in history. Unfortunately for them though, they had the performance issues when it mattered most. Losing a fluky to New York Giants team in the Super Bowl doesn't help their case for the most outstanding team ever. However, their offensive output alone matches the overall dominance of the top 3 teams relative to the mean. The defense of the Patriots was also 21% better than average. It is 90.7 better than the 2007 average rating. The second highest rating is 134 points behind. Unfortunately, that 3-point loss to the Giants destroyed the Patriots' immortal chances due to Eli Manning's right arm and David Tyree's ear piercings. That was also a shame. This team is the most dominant force ever put together, which happened after the salary restrictions were revoked. It would be a miracle before this happens again. In the number 3 spot, we have the 1984 San Francisco 49ers. The 1984 San Francisco 49ers are one of the best teams in NFL history as well. However, the 49ers team lacks interest in personal performance compared to the teams dominant that year. Keith Fanhorst of the offensive tackle was an all-pro player, the only first team on the 1984 roster. Nonetheless, the 49ers attacks dominated the ranking. They suffered the lowest sales in the league though. Montana's 32 pass touchdowns came in 2nd and 10 pass cuts came in 1st. The 49ers also finished 2nd in the yard earned per each pass attempt. Storm attacks were dominant as well. The 49ers averaged 2 seconds per rush and touchdown. They were also the 3rd in total yards above the ground. Their defensive excellence came from not giving up on touchdowns. San Francisco is out of the top 10 in many places, but has passed the first allowed in touchdowns and the allowed touchdowns in a hurry. In the number 2 spot, we have the 1985 Chicago Bears. The argument between the 1985 Chicago Bears and the 1984 49ers for the second greatest NFL team of all time was the most difficult. After all, they happened in back-to-back seasons. Both teams finished 2nd in points scored and 1st in points allowed. The Bears were a combined 74.9% better than the mean in points scored and in points against. The 49ers, though, meanwhile, were 73.1% in that category, but skewed a bit more towards offensive dominance rather than defensive dominance. And finally, in the number 1 spot, we have the 1972 Miami Dolphins. The undefeated Dolphin of the 1972 sits on the throne of the greatest NFL team ever. They had an unplanned cupcake, maybe a red velvet. Despite her 4.27 strength of schedule, it's only suitable for the 2nd lightest person on the list. The 1972 Dolphins are the only team to win the league on this list. What's amazing about the 1972 season is that they won 9 games, primarily in command of quarterback Earl Morrall. He was also named the first team of the season All-Pro. In addition, both Larry Csonka and Mercury Morris attacked over 1,000 yards created and pulled. In addition, both Larry Csonka and Mercury Morris attacked over 1,000 yards and created the Pro Bowl in 1972. The legendary Dallas Cowboys head coach Tom Landry has named the 1972 Dolphins defense the no-name defense. This is because the attack gained headlines while the defense was calm and dominating. They tied the Steelers for first in fumbles recovered and were second in defensive interceptions. Additionally, Miami was second in offensive first downs and allowed the least amount of first downs in the league. The Dolphins won each pass and finished third in both allowed net yards. As if that wasn't enough. They took the first place in the rush attempt, and if it wasn't enough, they ranked fifth in rushing attempts, yards, and yards per attempt. And 354 more times than they passed the ball, they ranked second in yards per carry with 4.8.